the hottest question I've had all day long. Why didn't they play the body camera video of Charles talking to the police, pleading for help? I asked Rachel Smith, the special prosecutor from the first case, who, by the way, will join me tomorrow. If you have questions for Rachel, send them in. She said, well, first of all, I asked why that Chad Daybell call wasn't played to the funeral home. She said the call was not played because it was hearsay. Unless Trina wants to say that Chad was a co-conspirator, then there may have been an exception. But they've kept most of the co-conspirator statements out. Keep Chad at a minimum. And I've noticed that through this trial. They've really kept Chad at a minimum. You haven't heard much mention of him. You start to bring in stuff with Chad, he could get charged. They already said years ago they're not charging him. So that's why they didn't play the call. The video with Charles is hearsay. Rachel says no exceptions apply. Charles is unavailable, and so it has to be kept out of court. The minimal Chad in the trial keeps it simple for the jury. One less person for Lori to blame. Arizona is keeping it simple. It is hearsay even if the person is dead. That's why we didn't see the Tiley interview at the police station. That's why we didn't see the Charles Vallow late night video. One exception is forfeiture by wrongdoing. If you can show the person is dead because of the actions of the accused, then some judges will let it in, but it's risky. Trina is trying a very conservative, safe case. Likely the judge wouldn't allow it in anyway. This case will be very clean on appeal. I've noticed that. It is very simple. There's not a lot of stuff in the weeds. There you could really sensationalize the case, or not sensationalize it, but blow it up. And Trina's keeping it very straight. So that's why the video was not played. I've got hundreds of emails, not that many, but a lot. What's the second trial we keep hearing about in Arizona? That has to do with Brandon Boudreaux. Brandon Boudreaux, her nephew who was shot at, he was on the dark list. He survived. He wasn't even hit, thank goodness. Lori's also charged with conspiracy to commit his murder. That one will happen at the end of May, and I'll be back here for that. Why is the death penalty not applicable in Lori's Arizona case? Because she's not charged with first-degree murder, and there's not aggravating factors. So the maximum sentence is 25 years to life, which is the same sentence she could get with first-degree murder, but that's why she's not getting death here. After Lori was transported from Hawaii, she was initially represented by a female. Yes, Edwina. Another male, and Mark Means. I never understood what transpired behind the scenes since the female lawyer strongly argued on behalf of Lori regarding bail. Lori did have her bail lowered. However, when nobody would secure Lori's bond, did the female attorney request Lori to provide JJ and Tylee's proof of life to aid in securing the bond and continuing her legal representation, or did Mark Means maneuver? I don't know any answers to that other than the fact that it probably was very expensive to have 3 private attorneys on your staff. And Lori was running out of money fast. And those guys are not going to defend her for free. And there probably was some drama behind the scene, which is how Mark Means ended up being the chief lawyer for about a year or two. Are you surprised none of the witnesses have slipped up when referencing Tammy, Tylee, and JJ? This is from Andrea. I thought by now with all the testimony there would have been something said about them in past tense so the jury could pick up on it. Well, there was one that Lori said that JJ had autism. I think that Trina worked with these witnesses to say only answer the question. There could have been a slip up, or there might be the temptation as a witness to say, well, yeah, I learned about it because I saw the kids were dead. Some sort of phrase like that you can't bring in because that could create all sorts of stuff. Lori today mentioned Tylee, and the judge said you can't bring that in. So it was, again, as Rachel Smith said earlier, playing it safe. If the kids had been mentioned, would there be a mistrial? I don't think about a mistrial. I guess it would depend on how huge the phrase was that was said about them. If a witness went off that the kids were butchered and buried in the yard and Tammy really went off, then perhaps, but I think the judge likely would have told the jurors, disregard what you just heard and, forget what you heard. The court reporter's fingers are typing a mile a minute. Would you ever consider interviewing her about her job? Luana asked. I asked and asked and asked the Idaho court reporter after Lori and Chad's trials, and she did not want to be in the spotlight. I asked for some others. I'll make the request here too. Many of you are asking if I'm going to interview the jurors. I hope so. They think they do things a little different in Arizona, where I've heard that at the end of the trial, if the jurors want to talk, they might hold like a news conference type thing where everybody does a one-on-one. But if you happen to know a juror and would be willing to pass along my information that I'd love to interview them after the trial, don't do it now. That would be great. That's how I landed one interview with Nick after the Chad Daybell trial in last year. So one of you, who I know that your dad, hooked me up with that interview. So thank you. Do we know if Charles ever found out who put the passcode on his life insurance policy? Rebecca asks. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think we kind of assume that it's Lori, but we don't know. That was never brought in because I don't think they could ever officially prove it. But that would be good to know. Will you try to interview Trina Kay? I'd love to talk to Trina Kay. I'd love to talk to Nathan Duncan. I'd love to talk to the defense attorneys who are helping Lori. The invitation's open. I will, after we get a verdict next week, assuming we get a verdict, I'm going to stick around Arizona for a few days and try to get some interviews. So we'll probably do Courtroom Insider a few nights next week, just depending on what develops. If nobody will talk, they might not talk until after Brandon's trial. So it might kind of be a quiet week, but anyway, I'm going to be still here gathering news. I have a question. Why was Lori's sister Summer texting Lori on July 10th and telling her everything Adam was doing? I don't know. I want to ask Summer about that. I think that Lori had told her family that Charles was abusive and that she was in danger, and maybe got them to believe this stuff, including her mother Janice. And so I think that she was being fed. Lori was feeding them some not so truthful information, but I will try to find that and elaborate a bit more on that. Can Lori plead the fifth? I guess she could, but I don't think she's going to be pleading now because she's still going to change her mind and take the stand, but I don't know. Do you think the jury's wondering where the kids are? I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have wondered. I'm sure they're going to be in for a shock when they show up on Monday and they're like, wait, what? We're done? We got to go deliberate? What about the defense? I know so many jurors in Lori's interview were really kind of disappointed and bummed, like, wait, what? We're not going to hear anything about the defense? What's that about? So they probably will have questions about that. I came to court is from Amy and noticing the jurors out front during the lunch hour. Is it their responsibility to leave the area if they hear something? Yeah, the judge told them if you hear something to leave, don't engage. I was on the phone with my wife today, walking out of the courthouse talking, and I saw one and I said, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, honey, and kept walking. So yeah, I've seen multiple jurors, multiple places during lunch and after court. It's quite different than Idaho. Do we know if Charles's life could have been saved had 911 been called sooner? I think they said that with that type of bullet wound in the heart, your chances that you can survive up to 3 minutes at most. So they would have had to be right there. And then I don't know if the damage to his body with 2 bullets could have been repaired. I don't think so, sadly. Can prisoners have life insurance? We talked about this a little this morning when I was live that I hadn't thought about, but one of you mentioned if your policies aren't paid, if your premiums aren't paid, they're not going to keep your policy. I don't know if Lori's life insurance policy is being paid, but I guess if it was, and then when you died, I would assume you'd get a payout. I don't know if, like, being a convicted murderer eliminates, there might be a clause in a contract. I'm not really sure on that. There's a lot of questions here. I think we will stop with that one. Let me do some shout outs really quick. Heather and Michael, it's your birthday. It's Heather and Michael O'Hara. It's her birthday on the 19th and their 27th anniversary on the 18th. What's today? 16th. Happy early birthday and happy anniversary. Glenn Jepson, always a faithful. Always a faithful. He watches every night, and I appreciate it, Glenn. Thank you. Vicky Road, Victoria Korchak. Today is Margarita's birthday. So many April birthdays. Love it. Met some people today at the courthouse who have birthdays. Vicky Davison, Rona McCoss, Sunny Hallfax, Julie Sanchez, Vicky Johnson, Magnolia Rose, Michael Robertson, Rosa Alderez, and then we have somebody watching from the Qatar, Middle East. Amazing. Dosh Sardi. We also have viewers in Providence, Rhode Island, Maine, Guatemala, New York, Vermont, Long Island, Guam, Hershey, PA. Bless you all for watching. Thank you. So tomorrow I will be in court. I'll do a live video if you want on the way to court. Here's where you can follow me and see those videos. Tomorrow likely won't be very eventful. I shouldn't say that because you never know what can happen, but they're going to go through the instructions. We'll be back here tomorrow night with Rachel Smith. She's going to take your questions. We're going to talk about what happens next, her view of how the prosecution went, why Lori Vallow may or may not testify. We'll also try to get a defense attorney. With that being said, I do want to acknowledge our sponsor, Alan Browning from Browning Law. We appreciate them sponsoring Courtroom Insider this go round during the trial. And we also want to thank you so much for watching. I went way long tonight. I thank you all so much. Before I go, some wonderful people from Utah brought me these freeze-dried candies. I've tried freeze-dried Skittles and marshmallows. This is a freeze-dried Tootsie Roll. I wanted to try it on camera for the first time. I love Tootsie Rolls. They put these in a freeze dryer and it's candy. Oh man. Oh my gosh, that's hard. That is not like a normal Tootsie Roll. Sorry for the crunch. That's a better sound than someone screaming in the courtroom, right? No one screamed. Oh, that's pretty good. Interesting. Okay. This is from Basically Done. Thank you to the very kind people that brought me this candy. That being said, I'm going to log off for tonight, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Courtroom Insider. Take care.